Hey folks, welcome into the News 12 Now desk with another episode of the Video Vault. If you don't know what this is, we basically take a look back at this week in history. So we open up the time capsule, bring back some old stories, and then we bring on somebody to talk about it and give us a little perspective and insight. Today, as you know, is the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks in New York City on the World Trade Center. So we are going to take a look at some of the old stories from then, and then we've got Captain John Hutcherson with the Columbia County Fire Department to talk to us a little bit about remembering that day and what it means to first responders, firefighters, not just up in New York, but really all over the country. And so we'll go ahead and play a couple of stories for you here, and then I'll have the full interview with Captain Hutcherson coming up right after that. So hope you enjoy this episode of the Video Vault.
Almost everyone remembers where they were when the first plane hit.
I was at home hanging out with family and came across the screen on the news.
When the buildings fell, so did tears of the American people, until tears turned to resolve, and resolve turned to resilience.
Expect nothing less from us. They would expect us to continue to live the American ideal. They would expect us to serve. They would expect us to be us, simply American.
For Benjamin Law, it was the day he decided to join the military.
Well, it was just a turning point in my life. It really made the world infinitely smaller.
As the world shrank, gratitude for America's bravest continued to grow. Now, 15 years later, they still deserve the honor.
It's important to, remember that day, and not forget. You can't forget. These people's lives have been affected for the rest of their lives. Their kids, every part of their family, generations.
Tony Kennelly's brother-in-law was a New York firefighter. He died in the South Tower trying to rescue people in an elevator.
Unfortunately, like the rest of the world, we sit around, unfortunately, watching his death live on TV.
On Fort Gordon, the weight of the silence, remembering the fallen, feels as striking as the cannon blast. Every year, a reminder to be thankful that we're still here, and together, we're America.
To keep this going, this is our generation's Pearl Harbor.
And I'm doing my part, but I'll do it. I'll keep doing it, and I won't stop.
Christy Etheridge, on your side.
Good morning. On a day very much like today, 11 years ago, our world changed forever.
September 11th is a sad day when over 2,000 people had died.
I was 2 or 3 years old. Planes crashed into the World Trading Center.
First it was the north, then the south.
We just saw this big black cloud all over Manhattan.
And they each burned down.
Well, my parents told me it was really crazy.
Some people jumped, and some people just burned.
Terrorism attack.
Some of these kids weren't even 3 years old, others not even born. But today, all piecing together the events of that morning.
And had I not seen it, I probably would not have believed it.
Lakeside Middle School history teachers using videos.
You talk about these moments and hope that, moments like this don't happen again.
Thousands of people lost their lives.
Meanwhile, at WS Hornsby, some fifth grade teachers like Miss McFadden drawing from their own experiences.
I'm reading to them about what happened, but I actually lived it.
For some, these images trigger memories. For students, they raise questions.
What are hijackers? Why did they do this? Did everybody on the plane die?
Howard, Barry,
W. Coombs.
Children learning about the sacrifices.
I think about my dad when he's in Afghanistan.
Ones that hit closer to home.
When the terrorists attacked us, now he's defending us from the terrorists.
Suddenly, history lessons they've been reading about become very real.
As this group of seniors at Cross Creek High School place American flags around their school, they reflect on where they were 10 years ago.
It's just a regular day. In second grade, you're coloring.
7 years old, I was down the street at Goshen in the second grade.
I was 7 years old, and I remember sitting in Miss Dorsey's second grade class. She was crying, and so she turned on the TV, and we saw what was going on.
Now it's a part of their living history.
It amazes me to this day that I was living and I saw it when it happened.
An event that many teachers have close ties to.
For me, there were officers killed in the Pentagon that I knew.
Jonathan Shaw found some of his students also knew people that were in danger.
I knew someone up in New York. I just remember a lot of people being scared and concerned.
When I teach history, I try to explain how these historical events impact their lives today. Well, here's one where I don't even really have to go into much detail.
That's because most students watch the surprise attacks unfold on TV. This week in class, they are replaying some of those clips.
When I looked at the video, I was like, how can people bring themselves to do this to other people?
I think my classes have helped me a lot to understand what was going on and how this has affected the United States since 2001. I mean, we went into war.
And even in the middle of a busy high school day,
Do something for someone else today.
the principal is stopping students and teachers to take away important lessons from that fateful day.
Those were big acts of running back into the burning buildings, but those things that we can do moment by moment to serve others.
And the images from that day are now motivating these seniors to unite by wearing red, white, and blue and give back.
Looking at it and just, school spirit, U.S. spirit.
The sound of God Bless America echoed through the sanctuary of Lakeside Baptist Church in Clearwater.
Can't believe it's already been 15 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time and it's been a short time.
Rick Duran was one of those inside, but his connection to this day runs much deeper. Rick is a former firefighter for the Fire Department of New York's Rescue Company 4 and was there the day of the attack.
I lost a lot of friends that day. And as well as a lot of civilians lost their lives.
15 years later, the images are still with them.
All I could see was just dust and papers and steel. The thing that kind of amazed me for a couple of days was that here were two 110-story buildings, and I didn't see one piece of concrete, one desk, one phone, one file cabinet, just paper and dust.
He and members from more than 25 law enforcement agencies were honored for their service.
Sure. What's your name?
Hayden.
Hayden.
Rick is now passing on the message of service to the next generation of first responders. He says the American pride felt in the wake of the attacks lives on as long as there's anyone willing to help.
There's nothing better than to volunteer, whether it be at your church, in your local fire department, helping out at your public safety, or whatever it might be. Just something to help your community.
Rick says the memory of all the victims lives on as long as we remember.
Keep their names alive, keep what they did alive, keep the memory of 9/11 alive in all of our people.
Ben Billmeyer, on your side.
And here the FBI, they're still working on the site where it came down.
Jenny Laurie looks at the pictures she took of where United Flight 93 crashed near her home in Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
When I think of home now, I'm very proud of what our little community, how we all came together.
Her mother was at their home just a short distance from where the plane went down, killing everyone on board.
She was so afraid. When this happened, terrorists is something we heard about far away, but not right where you live.
When the plane crashed, it buried itself completely underground, where it remains today.
The only evidence that a plane had gone down at that spot was the smoke. When the first people got there, all that was there was smoke and then the tire.
This is the remains of a airplane crash.
Smoke you can see in this, the first known video of the aftermath taken by a farmer miles away. It was just released last year, the year they dedicated the new monument.
The marble wall, they have built it in the path that the plane came down, and it's twisted around and then goes and it stops at the crash site. And there are 40 places on the marble wall that have the names of each one that died.
And it's that flight path that Jenny calls remarkable.
It's so remarkable because this plane passed over the high school. If it would have hit, it was full of students. It passed over farms and houses, and in a big field they brought it down. And they not only saved lives in Washington, D.C., they saved the lives of many people that lived there.
Oh, say, can you see?
I asked what happened, and they said, oh, the Twin Tower had just been hit. And I just thought it was just a mere accident.
I had a customer come in and
said that the World Trade Center was on fire, and I changed the TV over from the Sports Center to this news channel, and just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Whose broad stripes.
They said no, they think it's a terroristic attack. And I was just so amazed at what had happened.
It was just a bit of a shock that this type of attack would happen in American soil.
We immediately, within the law enforcement building, we put our building on lockdown. We knew a tragedy was unfolding. But the scary part of it, we just didn't know was that the end or was it the beginning of something.
Hurt, extreme hurt, because I could just see the billows of the puffing of the building going and the fires, and it was just for them to have invaded America like they had. It was nothing but a devastation and hurt.
It was a tragedy, but again, what we did in the days after, that's what makes the difference. This bring together that our nation was attacked, our freedom was attacked. We put all those differences aside.
And the home of the brave.
Okay, folks, so you just saw some stories there about 9/11, and now I'd like to welcome Captain John Hutcherson with Columbia County Fire Department to talk a little bit more about the first responder side of things. So first, Captain Hutcherson, appreciate you joining me this morning and taking a little time to talk about this.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's an emotional time when 9/11 comes around, especially if you were around when it happened and in the service, and it just brings back the thoughts and memories and prideful moments and understanding and remembering why we do what we do and the sacrifices they made in New York, those firefighters and everyone that passed, actually.
Yeah, so you've been in the fire department for 30 plus years now. What made you want to get started in that career field and kind of drove you to do that?
Well, of course, you do the canned answer as a fireman. As a child, you always wanted to be a fireman. But, at the time, I just had other friends that had gone into the service and had been in about a year, and they enjoyed it. And so I decided to give it a try. And 32 years later, here I am.
Yeah.
Loved it ever since. It's just an amazing job. Best job in the world.
Yeah, and over 32 years, you've seen a lot of things, I'm sure, but nothing really compares to 22 years ago now, September 11th. Take me back to that day, because even though you weren't there, you're still in that first responder brotherhood and that fire department community. Where were you on September 11th when you got the news that a plane had hit the tower?
I was actually working in a neighboring county when I worked for them. I was working that day, and we got the phone call to look at the news, and we began watching it. And of course, it was a smaller rural county at the time, and we wouldn't have seen any high rises or anything, but I remember me and my partner, just like it was yesterday, just sitting there talking about what would we do. And you hear that from so many firemen on that day, and we would have done the same thing. There's no other way to describe it. Even after all these years of learning more about the job and stuff, we would do the same thing. That's our job, is to go in and save and help and do whatever we can for the community. And so nothing's going to change. So yes, it brings back memories and thoughts that there again, or makes you proud to be part of a brotherhood, knowing that you're part of something bigger than yourself. It's just not about us, it's about the community.
Yeah, and when you're going to a call, you never really know what you're getting into. I mean, you have the idea, house fire, buildings on fire, whatever, but nothing can really prepare you for what these guys went through that day and the thoughts that were going through their mind, I guess, as they were heading to something completely unknown and unlike anything we'd ever see before. How, I know it's maybe hard for you to say because you weren't there, but how do you think they were feeling in that moment going in, not knowing what they were going into or if they were coming home?
Yeah, and you said it best. When every time we go from a cat in a tree to helping a kitten out of a storm drain, and then next thing you know you're on something nowhere near that, but you have to change gears so quickly, and you have to keep your head on straight and your mind right, and do the best you can. There's actually a documentary, two French brothers, the Naudet brothers, I believe. They were actually filming the first crew on scene when this happened, and to watch them, they were at a simple run-of-the-mill gas leak around the corner, and to watch them live in this video change gears to go to there. They were the first ones up. Now they all survived, but they were the first ones in there. They set up command. Just to watch them change gears is run of the mill. That's what we do. That's just what we do. We have to be prepared. We have to be thinking of contingency plans, and basically everybody goes home.
Yeah, and I know I was 4 years old when 9/11 happened. I was living in New Jersey at the time. I'm born and raised. I know that probably feels a little bit young when you hear that, but I didn't mean to do that on purpose. But I say that because that's one of my first memories, actually, is 9/11. Just being a little bit closer up there, and I'm more on the southern side of New Jersey, so about an hour and a half from New York, but still the impacts felt down there. And I remember having a dream about it shortly after, because one of the memories I have is the tower actually falling, and I remember having a dream about the tower falling and being there. And so for it to be that impactful to so many people, is it something that still rings in your mind when you're going out on a call, or just when you're sitting in the office one day and it just kind of brings back that memory of it really happening?
Oh yes. It just reminds you that you can't just go in complacent on anything. Anything can be dangerous. You have to have, like I was mentioning, your thoughts and your processes of, okay, this is as I mentioned earlier about this is the run-of-the-mill gas leak. This is just a standard ranch-style home that's a one-room burning. That's when people get hurt. That's when your firemen get hurt and you get complacent. And so if you don't keep these things that are tragic fresh in your mind, and to remind you of how things can go bad, whether it's their fault or not, or an act of terror, it could it could be bad for you, your crews, and even the public.
Yeah, when it happened, we saw how it changed the country. I mean, TSA formed, and we have all these new flight regulations. Did things change for you guys down here in Georgia within your department?
I believe it did. One of the biggest changes we've seen is awareness of cancer, because it's not just the impact of the 343 firefighters that passed, and of course our fellow Americans, but since then there's been an impact within their department with people with cancer from all the debris and dust, and awareness has become a big part of our job now. So we do our best to take steps to ensure that we're keep checks on our bodies, make sure our doctors, we advise people out what to tell their doctors and such, to be aware that we are at a high risk right out the gate once you sign on the paper, once you sign on the line to be a fireman. But as far as search and rescue in large areas, we've trained a lot on that. Rapid intervention teams, which will be set up outside of an incident in case someone gets hurt, they can go in and help them. Just the safety officers, I mean, all kinds of things have changed over the years. It's not as, I guess you'd say, as cowboy as it used to be.
Yeah, no, definitely not. So what does 9/11 mean to you? You were very quick with the number 343 firefighters or first responders who died that day. So it's something that obviously sticks with you being in that line of work. What does 9/11 mean to you?
9/11 to me is it's a lot of emotion. At the time it was something that was happening, but then over the years, every year since then, as you stated, for 22 years, it's every year we do something in remembrance of our fellow Americans and firefighters, and it could be emotional one way or another. It could bring in sadness, fear, anger for terroristic acts and acts against our freedoms, and biggest thing that is pride. Is pride knowing that I'm part of something that not everybody can say they are. Just knowing that I and my brothers and sisters here are doing stuff that some won't, or some can't, or some that I lost my word. You're gonna edit.
That's right. Yeah, it's all
but
good.
Just pride. I feel pride. If I had to sum it up, I feel pride knowing that we were part of something that's huge.
Yeah, and you kind of hit on
community.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of hit on it. You guys do things that some people can't do. You guys do things that some people won't do. Where does that mentality come from for you to put yourself on the front lines and say, I am willing to do this? Where does that come from for you?
It's ingrained in us from rookie school. There is no quit. There is no give up. There is no retreat. We're there to do a job. And I feel like that's a canned answer, but it's the truth. And that's what we teach our guys. People depend on us to do things that others aren't doing. We get called for everything, as I mentioned, kitten in a drain, to 9/11 situations, high rises, to airplane crashes. I mean, you name it, the fire department is there. So if you have that mentality of I can't, this isn't for you. You have to keep going. You have to be a problem solver, and you have to be able to work under conditions that are very, very stressful, and it's hard.
Yeah. As we're 22 years out now, we kind of said earlier, I was 4 when it happened, and you smiled, and I'm sure you've got people in your department who are younger than I am, who probably don't have any memory of the day and the events. Is that something you make sure everyone in your department knows about, is 9/11 and the importance of why you do what you do?
Oh yes, that's like right out of the gate with someone, 18-year-old, they want to be a fireman. A lot of them, they've even said it, as you stated, they've heard about it. They saw it when they were young, and that's all they've ever wanted to do. They want to be a fireman, You walk around the department, you'll see on the tattoos here and there or something, remember 343. I mean, it's not going away. It's a reminder of sacrifices that were made, that were selfless sacrifices that were made, and that's stuff that just keeps us going.
Yeah.
So, no quit.
So you mentioned you guys try to do something every year to remember. So what does Monday look like for you guys this year?
Monday is, I believe this will be the second year, but this year we're going to be at the parking deck near the Performing Arts Center in Columbia County. And we will be, you can wear your fire gear, you can wear your, shorts, gym shorts or whatever, but we're going to do a stair climb. And that's going to be 32 times, which will be right about the same number that they climbed, almost 80 flights. And it will be one up, one down is one. So up and down 32 times in remembrance of what they went through during this ordeal.
Yeah,
so we'd like everybody to come out.
Yeah, and that seems to be a very popular thing to do is the stairs on that day, because it really puts in perspective what these guys went through, and with full gear on, because that gear is not light.
No, sir, it's not. Packed out, well, air pack, full turnout gear, helmet, everything. You're looking at close to 40, 50 pounds, if not a little more. Plus, if you're carrying tools and such as that, some of them were carrying hoses, so they were upwards of 70, 80 extra pounds. Not one complaint. They just climbed.
Yeah, and that goes back to that mentality that we talked about. Have you ever been up to New York in the memorial? Seen the memorial there?
I have not, but that is on my bucket list.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's hard. It's harrowing in a way. Like you go up there and you see the two where the towers used to stand. It's the big squares, and they have all the names of the people who died that day. And I think the part that hit us the most when I went up there and saw it for the first time was there was a flower in one of the names. And we were like, oh, a family member must have come by and put a flower in there. And then we saw another one and another one. And we're like, they're all the same flower. And we see a sign there, and it says, if you see a flower in someone's name, it means it's their birthday today. And when you see something like that, yeah, it's a very eerie place to be. I haven't gone in the actual museum. I've just seen the monuments, the fountains that are there now. But I would highly recommend it for your bucket list. Like you said, it's a great thing to go see. But yeah, Captain, I think those were all the questions I had for you. Was there anything else that you wanted to add about the day or anything like that?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay.
Just don't want to sound stupid.
No, definitely didn't sound stupid. Yeah, and it's great to get the perspective of somebody who's in on the firefighter side of things to talk about it, and even being, down in Georgia when it happened, the impacts were felt so widespread, and so I think it's great to get that insight. So we do appreciate the time, and I'll let you get back to work.
Okay, thanks, sir.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
So a big thank you to Captain John Hutcherson with the Columbia County Fire Department for joining me today to talk about 9/11 and the importance of remembering that day and adding a little perspective again from the first responder side. And a big thank you to you as well for watching another episode of the News 12 Video Vault. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Have a good one.